Again, I want to welcome you to the Commissioners Board meeting for Thursday, January the 19th. We are broadcasting live via Microsoft Teams live event, also through BCTV, as well as Facebook and YouTube Live. At this time, please stand for a moment of silence, followed by a pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or corrections for the January 12th Commissioner meeting minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. We did have one executive session on January the 18th, dealing with personnel, contract negotiations, and litigation. At this time, I'd like to recognize my executive assistant, Anne Marie Grill, to read the public comment policy.
Thank you, Commissioner Linebuck. Public comment will be accepted in person and through the Q&A function. Please include your first name, last name, and municipality for all comments. Any comments without name and municipality will not be considered. Each citizen can submit one comment. Comment length is dictated by limitations of the platform being used, Teams Q&A, Facebook, and YouTube. In-person comments will be accepted first, followed by comments submitted virtually. The meeting comment period is limited to a total of 30 minutes, including both in-person and virtual comments. This time period may be extended at the discretion of the board. Please be concise. Comments that are germane to county business will be read during the meeting and should not be considered to be interactive dialogue with the commissioners. The county solicitor shall be the final arbiter of whether a comment is germane and should be read. Any commissioner response to public comment will be done at the discretion of the commissioners.
There's no public comment in person on the agenda items. You have to sign up if you want to make public comment. The sign-up sheet is in the back. There'll be general public comment at the end of the meeting. We'll begin item 1, authorizing under that budget department. Adopt a resolution authorizing 2022 appropriations in the amount of $16,315,968 and 2023 budget transfers in the amount of $62,973 and 2023 appropriations in the amount of $34,417 per listing dated January the 13th of 2023. Several items listed under purchasing. Item A, adopt a resolution amending a prior resolution, adding additional line items awarded to the vendor listed below, which were incorrectly omitted. All other information on the original resolution remains unchanged. This is Charmtex, Brooklyn, New York, estimated annual expenditure, $6,074.76. Estimated annual expenditure, Berks portion only, $4,723. Item B, adopt a resolution authorizing the recommendation to award and the Director of Contracts and Procurement to execute a contract as a result of an invitation to bid for nursing assistant platforms for the term as detailed below for the Berksheim Nursing and Rehabilitation as follows. Rosie Connectivity Solutions, Savannah, Georgia, estimated annual expenditure of $43,679. Item C, adopt a resolution authorizing the award and the Director of Contracts and Procurement to execute a contract as a result of an invitation to bid for hauling and disposal of filter cake material for a period of 1 year for the wastewater treatment plant as follows. Solid Waste Services, Inc., doing business as J.P. Mascaro and Sons, Audubon, PA, estimated annual expenditure of $44,987.50. There are several items listed under the commissioners. Item A, adopt a resolution rescinding a prior resolution and authorizing the Chief Operations Officer or Deputy Operations Officer to execute future resident balance payment agreements between the County of Berks on behalf of Berksheim Nursing and Rehabilitation and Berksheim residents, their authorized representatives, and/or guarantors. Item B, adopt a resolution rescinding a prior resolution and hereby authorize the Chief Operations Officer to authorize payments, electronic transfers, and employee payroll disbursements for all weeks when a meeting of the Berks County Board of Commissioners is canceled for any reason or when other urgent circumstances require prompt action prior to the next scheduled public meeting. Item C, adopt a resolution amending a prior resolution to authorize the Chief Operations Officer to execute the grant contracts on behalf of the County of Berks. Item D, adopt a resolution rescinding a prior resolution and hereby authorize the Chief Operations Officer to electronically execute and submit any and all documentation pertaining to grant applications requiring execution by the County of Berks. Item E, adopt a resolution hereby authorizing an appropriation in the amount of $6.3 million from the county general funds for implementation of infrastructure and activity identified in the broadband feasibility study, which includes pilot digital literacy programs. Item F, adopt a resolution authorizing the chair to execute the PMA policyholder disclosure notice of terrorism insurance coverage renewal as part of the social services and healthcare professional liability renewal application. This is for Berks County Children and Youth Services effective January the 8th of 2023. Item G, adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of the 2022 report of county fee for local use funds. Item H, adopt a resolution authorizing the redevelopment authority of the County of Berks to submit an application on behalf of the County of Berks for the whole home repairs program administered by the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, and further designates that the redevelopment authority of the County of Berks to administer the whole home repairs program. Item I, adopt a resolution authorizing the chair to execute the certification of county funds for 2023 program year to the State Bureau of Farmland Preservation for the appropriation of county matching funds in the amount of $1,301,324 for the purchase of agricultural conservation easements. Item J, adopt a resolution authorizing the chair to execute an intergovernmental transfer agreement between the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services, Office of Long-Term Living, and the County of Berks for intergovernmental transfers of funds to DHSOLTL to provide the non-federal share of medical assistance payment to county nursing facilities for the period of July 1, 2022 through December 31st of 2023. Item K, adopt a resolution authorizing the chair to execute an agreement for the county nursing facility capitation component between Pennsylvania Coalition of Affiliated Healthcare and Living Communities and the County of Berks for services provided to individuals enrolled in the Pennsylvania Community Health Choices program through various managed care organizations for the period of July 1, 2022 through December 31st of 2023. Item L, adopt a resolution authorizing execution of the Berks County Adult Probation Office Grant and Aid for fiscal year 2022-2023 application to the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. The grant is in the amount of $454,448 and is 100% reimbursed by the state. Item 2, a motion to authorize execution of contract agreements amendments as set forth on the attached listing dated January the 13th of 2023. There are a total of 4 contracts, 2 with Children and Youth Services, 2 with Parks and Recreation. Item 3, a motion to authorize execution of the payments and electronic transfers as set forth on the Controller's Office voucher listing dated January the 19th of 2023.
Motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I will second that motion. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. We'll move now to reports of our treasurer. We have our Deputy Treasurer, Linda Weaver.
Good morning.
Morning.
We have an opening balance of $218,100,079.92. We have a balance to clear of $8,446,400.79, leaving us with a balance of $209,653,679.13.
Thank you very much, Linda. We'll move now to the County Controller, and in for the County Controller, we have Grozna Nikiel. Grozna.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Total disbursements for Commissioners meeting dated January 19, 2023 were $14,462,147.24 and comprised of total accounts payable that included checks and wires to various vendors in the amount of $9,652,983.07, and also payroll, and combined payroll was $4,809,164.17.
Thank you very much, Grozna. We'll move now to our Chief Operations Officer or officers. We'll start with Ron.
Thank you, Commissioner. In keeping with the tradition of the tribal elder passing on his lore to the braves that are coming up, to succeed him, I yield my time to Chief Operations Officer Barnhart.
Thank you, Ron. So last week, Larry and I were drinking out of a fire hose. So we now recently left the fire scene. Now we're at the airport and we're taking off in our jet and we're going to hit cruising altitude probably at the end of the year. So it's been an interesting second week, but
for the record, the county doesn't own a jet, and you aren't renting a jet, and nor are you flying commercial. This is a metaphor, correct?
I have connections with the governor, so we're using the governor's plane.
Don't say that.
But anyway, as Ron has eloquently handed the mantle over to us, we are going to announce the Park and Recreation February and the Parks programs. It's about 2 weeks away, so mark your calendars. First is Saturday, February 4th, Winter Wellness Walk, 9 a.m. at the Heritage Center. Free registration is suggested, but it is free. Wednesday, February 15th, Snowshoe with Your Sweetheart. If you have one, 5:30 at the Heritage Center. That's also free, but registration is required. Tuesday, February 21st, Read with a Ranger, 10 a.m. at the Heritage Center. Again, interaction with our park rangers. That's free, and we suggest registration. And the last piece on Saturday the 25th is Maple Sugaring at 10 a.m. at Grings Mill. There is a $3 fee and registration is required. Any further information, please email L. Gawker, L-G-A-U-K-E-R at countyberks.com or call 610-374-2944, extension 2611. And as always, the county certainly likes to give as much back to the taxpayers as they receive. So something like this is a great opportunity to get out into our parks and enjoy some services provided by the County Parks and Recreation Department. Lastly, I want to thank the Reading Eagle as well as congratulate our new Deputy Director of Veterans Affairs, George Bolton, who came to work for us, working for Ken LeBron. So I think the Reading Eagle did a great job of explaining his background, his years of experience with the Marine Corps and the battles he faces. So certainly certainly a great opportunity for him there to service the needs of 23,000 veterans in Berks County. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. With that, we will move into commissioners' comments, and I will turn the meeting over to Commissioner Michael Rivera.
Thank you, Commissioner Leinbach. So This is usually the time of the year when we take the opportunity at the board meeting to review our 2022 goals and talk about our 2023 goals. So I'm going to take some time to go over what the 2022 goals were. Those were, or at least my 2022 goals, they were brought up at the beginning of last year. So, and I just want to go through them and give an overview of what was accomplished in reference to those goals, and then talk about not all the goals and objectives for 2023, but I want to focus on some of the priorities for this year. So I'll start out with 2022. The first one was around budget and spending. That's one that has been a goal since I started, and it's to maintain the county in a solid financial situation. One of the goals was no tax increase in 2023, which was accomplished. The goal is to do that for 2024 as well. Another area under budget and spending has to do with the savings and efficiency team. That's a team where we look at how the county can be more efficient and where we could save money. And one of the ways is in the more use of technology. So one, we expanded the use of digital signatures for court and county business, conducted training on digital signatures, technology requirements, definition, and tactical cybersecurity, implemented phase 1 of courtroom technology expansion to enable better use of technology in the courtroom and better remote participation in court procedures. And 4, expanded use of technology to support election rover activities. Number 2 was ways for residents to interface with the county electronically. We started a website implementation project to improve the county website to make it more usable, and implemented an open data portal to make it easier for constituents to access data sets, including land records and assessment data. And input from staff, conducted surveys for efficiency recommendations from all departments, and started implementations of a communities of practice effort to improve citizen-centric discussions between county and court departments. So for the SET team, we meet on a regular basis, usually every 1 to 2 months, and it's made up of myself, someone representing the raw officer, someone representing the courts, and Justin Luce, who is our Chief Information Officer, because a lot of what we do is around technology. So there's been a great deal of work done this year, or in 2022, and it's also part of my goals for 2023. The other issue around fiscal responsibility is the best use for county property. We have the North Campus, the South Campus, and the downtown campus. One of the things that we looked at is how can we partner with the Redevelopment Authority and our other authorities for best uses. And through the Redevelopment Authority, we were able to provide adequate magisterial district justice offices for 4 of them, and well, 4 since we started this project, 2 last year. And that was also provide more adequate offices for them and to reduce the rent that they were paying as well to help save the county money. We'll continue to work with the Redevelopment Authority on reviewing additional offices for the MDJs. Item number 2 was relationship with the City of Reading administration. Did a lot of work with them. Just some items I want to highlight. Is throughout 2021, we worked with the city as part of the project team on the Downtown Plus plan that the city was doing. As we progressed with the county's plan, Imagine Berks, we included several city representatives as part of our meetings, including having Jamal Abadalo as part of our advisory committee and agreeing to include parts of the city's strategy in our plan, even though their plan has not been adopted. We're working with the city administration to support their lead on developing a transit-oriented district to support the location of passenger rail train station, and as part of this, supporting the station location feasibility study. And we have been working with them to establish a land bank and execute an intergovernmental cooperation agreement that will guide the administration of the land bank. And also we've invited the city to be part of the Passenger Rail Authority Board, which I'm sure Commissioner Leinbach will touch on a little bit when he's speaking. One of the other goals was the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We wanted to make sure that the program was running properly and meeting the purpose of keeping people in their homes. So from the beginning of the program until the end of 2022, 4,775 applications were received with 3,410 families approved for assistance. The average assistance award was $13,700 for an average time of assistance of 4.5 months. Item number 4 was ag, which is very important here in Berks County. One of the goals is to continue to work on determining if some type of co-op or consortium or something of that sort would be beneficial in Berks County. We don't have anything like that. So various meetings were held with the ag department leadership. They went to Lancaster and a couple other places as well to look at what was done there. And it was determined that the best way to move forward here in Berks County for now was to grow through the Buy Local program and connecting our local producers and processors with school district, local businesses, county departments, and the residents in general. So some of the 2022 highlights in reference to this was 21 teachers and 16 agribusinesses connected to better understand career opportunities in agriculture. We partnered with Penn State Extension to host 170 people for the Farm Safety Twilight Tour, hosted 139 participants and 46 exhibitors at virtual and in-person career fairs to discover opportunities in agriculture and natural resources. We facilitated an information session with 14 school district food service directors and 6 local vendors that led to at least 2 additional school districts with repeat orders of local produce from one of the vendors. One of the local vendors here, it's Dirt to Dinner Distribution. They've actually been working with more school districts and finding ways to get local food into the school districts. They've been doing a great job at it. So that was a big win this year for the ag department. They've also been promoting the agriculture and their businesses through BCTV, BCIU, and other social media, and increased knowledge of soil health and conservation by hosting the soil health workshop with 24 farmers in partnership with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture and local ag partners. One of the other things we did with the ag department as well is we re-looked at what their needs were, what the needs of the local ag community was, and we added 2 positions to that department to help meet the needs that they have. The other was the American Rescue Plan, and make sure the money is used the best way possible to provide long-term benefit to the county of Berks. And what part was used for county needs and the other part was used for community needs, which was done through a grant. For the grant, a group of community partners was used to select the grant recipients. We wanted to stay out of this. The commissioners wanted to stay out of who would get the money and who would not get the money. That's why a group of community partners was used. They selected the grant recipients. People applied through an application process. It was a long process, so I do thank the partners who helped approve those grants. The purpose of the grant was to be a resource of last funding. In other words, to use the money for projects that there was no other money for. Project sites, the grants were approved and project sites are underway, and the review of supporting documentations to ensure that the county funds are being spent as intended. So it's not that, okay, you're approved, here's the money, move along. There's a process that we're following to make sure that the project is moving forward, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that the money is spent the way it's supposed to be spent. There was about $20 million in community project funding that aligns with the Imagine Berks implementation. And some of those were business and industry growth with $6.62 million, which includes the broadband funding, infrastructure and land use, $8.2 million, which includes the newly created infrastructure fund of $5 million, placemaking, $3.1 million, which includes Main Street projects and trail connections, small business and entrepreneurship, $153,000, which includes micro lending funds, talent and economic mobility, $2.25 million, which includes healthcare program expansion at RAC and Auvergne, and mental health has also been identified as a priority. So these are 5 of the 6 priorities from the Imagine Berks strategic plan that we've allocated those funds to. Under number 6, economic development, 1, support of entrepreneurs through partnerships. And I spoke about the Financial Lending Innovation Collaborative, which are providing funds for micro lending, because this group, this collaborative has a mechanism in place to administer these funds rather than the county trying to do that when it's not what we do. Another was workforce development and upskilling. There was a successful resumption of the semi-annual in-person PA CareerLink Berks County Job Fair at the Abe Lincoln. That was done in April, and in November, there were over 550 job seekers and over 90 employers at each event. There was a completion and delivery of the report from our ad hoc task force on adult English language proficiency and numeracy, and there's a link to that on the Berks County Workforce Development site under the Planning Committee Ad Hoc ESL report is the name of it. And there was the PA Dream Team expansion. That's the use of the Workforce Development Business Education Partnership Grant to fund multiple school-to-work projects, including the expansion of the Manufacturing Resources Center Manufacturing Dream Team in partnership with the Berks County Intermediary Unit. Our funding helped launch the Dream Team in 2022 and 2021 and 22, with team members visiting 80 local classrooms in Berks County at the invitation of their teachers, with over 2,100 Berks County students participating in interactive presentations and activities to promote careers in manufacturing. During the current school year, the team has grown to 14 young, fully trained manufacturing professionals. They're not only college graduates, sponsored by 9 local manufacturers. We expect that the final number in visits of students participating this school year will exceed last year's impressive results. This is to help promote manufacturing and let kids know you don't have to go to college after high school. There are other alternatives. College is good for some, but it's not for what everyone has to do. Under the county's economic development strategy plan, Imagine Berks projects, and these are projects that will impact the county's tax assessment income in the next 5 years. In August 2022, we formally adopted the Imagine Berks Strategic Economic Development Action Plan, and we engage diverse community members and business leaders to develop the plan, which will proactively guide our policies and investments in the next 3 to 5 years. We believe that the plan implementation is so important that we started its implementation just prior to it being formally adopted. And there are 6 key areas which I mentioned prior as how the ARP money is being used. And through this plan, we are regularly convening meetings with our partners like GRCA and many others to implement measurable activity that show results. We didn't want this plan to be something that was stuck in a drawer and wasn't looked at for 2 years. So there are measurable activities in here, and the groups are meeting actively. So we are committed to measuring the results for Berks County. Next month in February, we'll have a 6-month report out on the plan, followed by annual public reports on the activity and progress that we are making to address the economic success and sustainability of the county. You can go to imagineberks.com for the full report. We have been working closely also with the Greater Reading Chamber of Commerce, Berks County Industrial Development Authority, Berks County Redevelopment Authority, and other partners. This was a plan as well, and I'm not going to go through all of that, but Jeremy Saborowski from the Berks County Industrial Development Authority is a member of the Imagine Berks project team. The Redevelopment Authority is also a member of the project team. They've also been essential in the housing implementation strategy, as well as the emergency rental assistance program. The Reading Regional Airport Authority is identified in the Imagine Berks plan, and we participated in the preparation of an airport strategic plan with our consultants, BBP. Item number 7 is elections. There were two areas under elections. One was election reform, and I was involved in that through CCAP. That was one of the ways. The top priorities for CCAP. CCAP is the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania. There are two priorities that were set in a bipartisan group. One was pre-canvassing prior to Election Day and the moving back of the mail-in absentee and ballot deadline to 15 days before. Pre-canvassing would allow us to have results on Election Day, or most of them at least, and moving back the mail-in absentee ballot deadline to 15 days will allow us more time to get things prepared and out on time to avoid any issues. Other meaningful reform that was promoted through CCAP as well was what's going on with drop boxes. There's nothing in the law in reference to that. That's something that needs to be addressed. Something else that needs to be addressed is naked ballots and ballot curing as well. Nothing there. And another issue that was being tackled is the ever-changing guidance from the Department of State. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in reference to election reform. In the Elections Department, in 2022, we put in place an experienced chief registrar, which has been providing stability to the staff there since we did not have a director there for about half of the year. Also in 2022, 3 new election coordinator positions were created, understanding that there's a need there for more staffing to be able to get things done in a more timely manner. And this gives room for staff growth within the department. We brought in 7 new voter registrars in 2022. This filled existing openings created by promotions, and 2 new registrar positions. Because of our relatively new staff, the management team has been conducting training sessions either weekly or bi-weekly. The first topic we've been covering is the petition process. In summer of 2022, the management team had a 2-day training with ES&S. The training covered ballot creation using electionware software. The second item there was processes and systems to improve on deficiencies. For the November 2022 election services used a new software, 10X, for poll worker management. We're continuing to work with our information systems department and 10X to improve this in 2023 and implement the campaign finance and candidate component of 10X. To improve the poll worker process for the 2022 election, we conducted additional hands-on poll worker training on the electronic poll books over the summer. We continued this hands-on training in the fall and will offer it again before the 2023 primary. The mail-in ballot scanning process was approved in November with the purchase of 2 DS850 high-speed scanners. This process was further enhanced using the second floor of the former SAM building for the pre-canvassing and canvassing of mail-in and absentee ballots. Having this additional space helped us streamline and improve the auditing process. And we also, to improve communication between the polling locations and election services on Election Day, 10 additional rovers were added starting with the November election. And we also used different ways of communication also to improve that. Another area is passenger rail. I'm not going to discuss that for time purposes, as I assume Commissioner Leinbach will do that. Another area was transportation, and I won't go over that as well, but there is information on our website about that. But we are moving forward with transportation. Just a few things I want to touch on there was that we adopted the new master planning agreement with PennDOT to fund $4.3 million in transportation planning program for fiscal years 23 through fiscal year 2028. And this was done in March of 2022. And we adopted the revision of the Berks County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan in March as well as the fiscal year 23 through 2045 long-range transportation plan, which will come now, which was done in July. So there's a lot going on in transportation as well, although it may something that may not be talked about as long. And there are ongoing repairs to the West Shore Bypass Highway lighting system that was started in 2022 as well. Let's see. And other items there were the new jail, which we've spoken about that before. The health study, just want to touch on 2 items there. The RFP was developed, responses were received and reviewed, and a contract was let, and a consultant was hired, which is Health Management Associations of Lansing. In addition, commissioners appointed a core team of community leaders to work with, guide, and act as a local resource to the consultant. The project team has completed a review of local public health data in comparison with similar data points from other jurisdictions. These include 5 counties in Pennsylvania, which the project team identified as of interest in the effort. And they have conducted focus groups and are finalizing key informant interviews to better understand the local needs, strengths, and weaknesses in key areas of public health. And they're expected to complete their assessment work and then draft recommendations to the county in order to improve our health and associated quality of life in Berks County. The final report and recommendations are expected to be delivered in March. So that's what I have for 2022. That's a lot, and that was only part of it. And I'm going to just go over briefly what my goals for 2023 are the areas of priority. I'm not going to get into detail with them. I will post them on my website shortly. But one, budget and finances, that still remains priority number 1. Continue with the SET group and implementation there. That's priority number 2. Continue with the ag department and that buy local program. How do we connect our local producers and processors with businesses? We saw a need for that, especially through COVID. Want to continue economic development as well, supportive entrepreneurs, focus on the Imagine Berks action plan, strategic plan, and continue to work closely with our partners at the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance, the Redevelopment Authority, the Industrial Development Authority, and other partners as well. Elections is the 5th focus around 1, continuing to develop the elections department, and also 2, to continue to focus on election integrity through the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania and through our local delegation as well to the General Assembly. Facilities-wise, we are working on a space allocation study to determine the best uses for North, South, and downtown campus. One of the things we're working on right now is the highest and best use for where the Berks County Residential Center used to be at. We're looking at options there, which I don't want to get into at this point, but we'll have more information on that shortly. We are looking at how that can be used to meet some needs here in Berks County. Another key area is staffing shortages that we have here at the county, primarily in the departments of Children and Youth Services, our 911 call center, the jail, and the Berks Heim. Another focus will be the Reading Regional Airport. How do we make the highest and best use out of that? Implementing what came out in the strategic plan. This is a huge asset to the county, and we need to make sure that it's developed to its highest potential. And the other area, the last one, is mental health. This is a huge issue, both for adults and children. There's declining, well, technically there's declining funding. The funding has stayed the same for the last 10 years. So with increased cost and need, the funding has technically declined. So that's something we're looking on at the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania level as well, because it's statewide, not just here in Berks County. So those, like I said, are my priority. By no means anywhere close to what the focus will be on for this year, but I didn't want to really get into anything else. If anyone has any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer those. And like I said, I will post this on my website shortly as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Rivera. I'm going to go through mine, do it a little bit differently. In my 2022 goals, the first item was budget and spending. I always have focused on fiscal responsibility first. We highlighted that when I took office in 2008, we had a total of 2,591 employees. Headcount is one of the biggest cost drivers in any organization. County government is no exception. At the end of 2021, so when I wrote the 2022 goals, our employee headcount, full-time and part-time, was 2,097. At the end of 2022, our employee headcount was 1,988. My plan was for no tax increase for 2023. We ended up keeping that commitment. I wanted to continue to focus on the Savings and Efficiency Task Force. During 2022, Commissioner Rivera took over the lead of that. I also was focused on the American Rescue Plan dollars, making sure they benefited those most seriously impacted by COVID and that we supported projects that had long-term benefit. In 2023, my goal is to continue to focus on headcount, continue to plan for no tax increase in 2024, continue to focus on the Savings and Efficiency team, and use the balance of the American Rescue Plan dollars for critical county needs and or projects. That amount is between $4 and $6 million. The second item is new for 2023. It was not on 2022. It's goals and objectives for the new Berks County management team. Kevin Barnhart, our new COO, Larry Medaglia, our new deputy COO. And I'm going to give a statement under each of these. See that the new team has the support and the resources necessary to drive the new mission and vision for Berks County government. And then I have three objectives underneath that. One, establish new, meaningful, and achievable mission and vision statement for Berks County government generally. If anyone's looked at our mission and vision statement on the website, I'd love somebody to explain to me what it actually means. It's been there, I hate to admit this, since before I became a commissioner, and only recently looked at it and not sure exactly what it means. But we will also seek to pull together a mission and vision statement for each department. Secondly, have a long-term strategy in place for the new COO, deputy COO team. The core goals, department, and this is not COO department, but overall department stability and a focus on a team environment. And secondly, making sure that department succession plans are in place. And then the third item is begin implementation of that strategy, hopefully by the second quarter of 2023. The next area is elections. For 2022, the goal was to have a new elections director in place, restructuring the department, adding additional technology with electronic poll books, updated policies and procedures. I'm going to focus on those first. It was a rough year for elections. We own the problems that occurred with the electronic poll books in the primary. We took responsibility. It was investigated by an outside agency. Recommendations were made. Those recommendations were implemented. I know that John Archer brought up the policy issue a week or so ago. We began the policy procedure manual. A lot of work has been done on that. We need to continue to work on that. And that's a project that's never done. It always needs to be updated. And I'll talk a little bit further about that. And we continue to update policies and procedures. Going forward in the department, my goals and the statement is work to reinstate strong voter confidence in the department and voting process here in Berks County and across PA. And I have two parts, election department and election reforms. Election department, my goal is to see it fully staffed, delivering elections in 2023 that run smoothly and build voter confidence. And here are the steps. One, restructure the department and fully staffed by the end of 2023. I can tell you that's already well underway based on a meeting yesterday. Two, provide a detailed process review of the entire department, identifying pinch points, areas that need procedural improvement, etc. We are bringing in, and I'm not going to name anything because we have to vote on it, but the plan is to bring in a professional Six Sigma process review firm that looks at every single step in the election process, certification, election day, the work that happens at the polls, and identify any areas that need to be improved or identify any areas that could be a problem so that we have a complete mapping beginning to end of the entire process. Kevin Barnard, our COO, has already had 2 meetings, I believe, with the individual that we are pursuing in this area. Thirdly, continue updating policies and procedure manual. This effort began in earnest in 2022, but it must continue as an ongoing effort. Next, complete the improvements of the elections operations at the South Campus. Primarily at the South Campus, we have storage, certification, and training. Those are the core areas that the South Campus is handling relative to elections. And then finally, finalize the location of our main election offices as well as location for canvassing. Under election reforms, the priorities in 2022 were pre-canvassing, and you're going to hear me using a new term, canvassing. I found out recently that Pennsylvania is the only state that calls it pre-canvassing, and the term is canvassing, and it's the idea that you start prepping the mail-in and absentee ballots prior to Election Day so the totals can be available on election night. The election reforms were a priority of pre-canvassing and moving back the mail-in absentee ballot date to 14 days. Dropbox legislation, clarity on signatures on mail-in and absentee ballots, clean up the voter rolls via state rules, better election, and I have that, that's not there, and keep an eye on the mail-in ballot case in Commonwealth Court. This time last year, Act 77 was in Commonwealth Court. Ultimately, Commonwealth Court ruled that it was unconstitutional, which was my belief as well, still is my belief. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court later in the year overturned the decision of the Commonwealth Court and ruled that it is constitutional. Election reform going forward in 2023, I support legislative initiatives to restore and strengthen election integrity and clarify election law. For me, the number one issue is we need voter ID laws. If we don't have voter ID, a lot of the other issues, I don't want to say they don't matter, but voter ID takes care of a lot of issues. I do not support a constitutional amendment. I think we need to be very careful that we don't turn the Pennsylvania Constitution into a Christmas tree. You can't take every law and make it a constitutional amendment. But voter ID laws need to happen. Over the last week, I've had several conversations, and I believe that there is a strong possibility that Harrisburg, both on the DNR side, will support a voter ID law, and that the governor may sign it. Again, I had multiple conversations. To me, if we can get that, that is a huge win for voter integrity and trust in elections. Secondly, move back the mail-in application date from 7 days before election to 14 days. I should note there was virtually no election reform last year, just for the record. Act 88, which you didn't see any of that on here, was one thing that took place that dealt with funding for counties and outside funding, but there was no there was no changes in the core areas. Thirdly, canvassing. And I have a different viewpoint on this than I did this time last year. This issue requires further review. The addition of technology, as well as more experience with the process, has made this less of an issue in most Pennsylvania counties. The larger the county, the more likely that this may be an issue. I participated a week ago, Monday, on a statewide webinar with a couple other county commissioners and some others. It was Business for America. And while they were strongly in support of legislation that would allow canvassing multiple days before the election, a lot of counties don't see that need right now. Now, a presidential election may change that. So I am not solidly in favor of expanding the canvassing for all counties. Other reforms, those are my top ones. Other reforms I would like to see in 2022, Dropbox rules on security in particular. Clarify the law on dated and undated mail-in ballots. We're involved in another case in the Western District. The Supreme Court, a week before the election, ruled that the outside envelope must be dated and it must be the correct date. And they determined the correct date was between the date for application and the date that the ballot has to be received. The problem is the law doesn't provide a date. The law simply says shall be signed and dated. The law needs to be updated and clarified. Clarification on signature verification, huge confusion around this. The law doesn't provide for any method to verify signatures other than the poll worker making a human determination if the signature looks similar to the signature on file. We need some clarity on signature verification. And I have it in three areas: in-person voting, mail-in and absentee ballot applications, and mail-in and absentee ballots outer envelopes. We also need to clean up the voter rolls via state rules. Many years ago, before I was a commissioner, it used to be pretty simple. If you didn't vote once every 4 years, your name was pulled and you had to re-register to vote. Anyone that understands the laws under the current system, including people who have died, people who have moved, whatever the issue may be, it can take up to 8 years to move a voter off the voter rolls. That's insanity. When we look at it, people get confused when you look at the voter sure system. There's one database. Every county doesn't have their own database. There's one database, and there's active and inactive voters. That's very confusing. So clean up voter rolls via state rules. Address the reliability issues around the SURE system. The SURE system's been in place since early 2000, almost from day one. Before I was a commissioner, I was aware that the SURE system had technical problems that impacted its stability. And I'm talking about its reliability. The system would go down. That happened again multiple times this last year, and that is unacceptable. It causes confusion. It went down once or twice the week prior to the election. And it means that no counties were able to access some or all of the information. We need to address the naked ballot issue, and we need to address the curing of ballots. The next area is transportation. In 2022, I noted that the Berks 222 corridor and the West Shore bypass remain critically important road projects. Funding is the problem. Declining state dollars continue to be an issue. The inability or unwillingness of the Commonwealth to address that issue. Again, I'll talk about what happened. Then Berks County took legal action, and I called for that this time last year to stop interstate tolling. That was one of the ways PennDOT was going to solve the funding problem. Ultimately, we were successful, and that effort was completely stopped dead in its tracks, in part because of Berks County working in conjunction with almost every municipality in northern Berks and 3 municipalities in Allegheny County. I also highlighted that with the passenger rail, it was our hope to form a Tri-County Passenger Rail Authority. Ultimately, that did happen in April. I highlighted that we wanted to form a Berks Technical Advisory Committee. We did that. We chose a chair and hired an interim executive director. I also highlighted my support for the 3-year reauthorization requirement because we don't know what we don't know. And the idea of supporting the formation of an authority, which historically in Pennsylvania is 50 years, that when you form an authority, it's formed for 50 years. I specifically requested a clause in the documents that required that 3 years after the approval of the authority, all 3 counties would have to reauthorize the authority again in order for it to continue. That was put in place so that in April of 2025, Berks, Chester, and Montgomery County will have to vote to reauthorize. If one county votes in the negative, the authority is dissolved. I also noted to begin negotiations with operator Amtrak and begin negotiations with Norfolk Southern. So in transportation for 2023, I support and implement projects that are critical to the local safety and economy of Berks County that respects the users of transportation and the taxpayers that pay for it. The 2 top priorities remain the Berks 222 corridor completion. I'm not going to say nothing has happened, but very little has happened, largely because there's a funding shortage. And then continuing and starting the West Shore Bypass project. This is a major project for people who don't drive in and around the Reading area. They may not be aware that this is a public safety and an economic driver issue. If that artery goes down and when there is a serious accident, it almost shuts this whole area down because there are not viable detour routes around that area. Again, the issue is we have to address declining state dollars. That continues to be an issue. I do not believe in the gasoline tax. I think it is archaic, antiquated. We need to find a system that is based on user fees. You use the system. What type of vehicle are you driving? What is its weight? What are the miles traveled? I don't know if that's going to happen, but I believe that's the right direction to look. When we talk about the bridge tolling issue, again, the word I'm hearing is that while it's dead legally, it's not dead within PennDOT. They're still trying to figure out how to resurrect that. We need to keep our eye on it. We need to be willing to take them on again if we have to. Passenger rail service, the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority was formed in April 2022. We do have an interim executive director. We are in the middle right now of the Federal Rail Administration application for the Corridor ID program. That's the critical next step. If we are awarded recognition of this corridor, that makes it much easier to sit down and negotiate with Amtrak relative to the 3 extensions proposed by Amtrak in Pennsylvania. Those extensions are Scranton to New York, Lehigh Valley to New York, and Reading to New York via Philadelphia. Reading and the SRPRA are far ahead right now of where Scranton and Lehigh are, but we want to keep there. If we are able to win the FRA Corridor ID, we will then be able to negotiate with Amtrak and potentially negotiate with Norfolk Southern this year. The next item is the new Berks County Jail. Last year, at this time, focused on the Berks County Correctional Facility Steering Committee, making sure that process is public and transparent, a commitment to rehire CGL. We amended the prior agreement. The timeline would allow for a decision on construction by the end of 2023 or early 2024. And we wanted to continue to focus on right-sizing the jail, making sure that the people in the jail need to be in the jail and shouldn't potentially be in some other diversionary area. Over the course of 2022, some things have changed. We did have a very open and public process led by then Commissioner Kevin Barnhart with CGL and what we call the Berks County Correctional Facility. That's the future name of the facility. But by the end of the year, actually by the fall, each of the commissioners were able to have a meeting with Bob Patrizio, and he updated us. Bob sat on the Finance Committee, and the revised estimates, and there's no designs, there's square footage for various usage preliminary plan, but we've not hired an architect and designed a building. But based on those square footage numbers, the cost of the jail went from an estimated 150 to 200 million cost pre-COVID to 300 to 320 million. And I can tell you this, I guess the most interesting comment was Commissioner Barnhart at the time. I heard through Bob Patrizio that Commissioner Barnhart, who he met with first, said, "I think I'm going to throw up." I said, "Stop." And so last year, we already announced a pause. And so here's where I am for 2023. New Berks County Correctional Facility. Pause the plans for construction and focus on who should and should not be incarcerated from a justice, cost, and humane perspective. Public process will continue with CGL and the Berks County Correctional Facility team, but that process now is moving away from focusing on construction to focusing on this, who should be incarcerated. What we'll be doing is reviewing the size of the jail, considering ways to dramatically lower the jail population. Number one, looking at severe mental health alternatives. Any given day, we have 10 to 12% of our jail population are in the severely mentally ill category. They shouldn't be in our jail. Even if they are violent offenders, then they should be at a place like Norristown Mental Institution, which is a facility for the criminally insane. But most of our people are not in that category. Many of them are one person to a cell, and they represent 10 to 12% of the population. Another group that we're looking at very closely are those that the courts have authorized to be part of work release. And work release are individuals that are spending 8, 9, 12 hours a day during the week out in the community, in their workplace, and then they come back to sleep at the jail. But because they're at the jail, if they're a veteran, they have the veterans benefits are gone. If they're on Medicare, Medicaid, even their private insurance, all of those are gone. They become wards of the county. We're looking at an option that would have them doing a day of participating in day reporting, a much lower cost, at least preliminarily, and that also is 10 to 12% of the population. Effectively, if those are the only two areas that we can resolve, we can drop the population of the jail from 20 to 25% approximately. And we're going to continue to support diversionary programs that are already in place and look for other options. Obviously, the timeline is going to be impacted. It's on hold. I'm not putting out a new timeline. Berks County Health Study in 2022, I noted that the results should be complete this year. Will require careful review and study of the results and discussion of possible action by the county and possibly other entities as a result of the study. For 2023, I will note the study has not been completed. It will be completed in March. And my commitment is to review the results and recommendations of the study and act in the best interest of health and safety of the public as well as the taxpayers. 2 bullet points. One, that the results should be complete March of 2023. And 2, recommendations will likely address multiple stakeholders and not just potential county action. Reading Regional Airport. Last year at this time, I noted that there was an active request by the authority that we considered dissolving the board and moving the airport to a county department, that hopefully that would be completed during 2022. There was also a suggestion, or actually I think it was my idea, that I wanted to see an airport advisory committee supported, composed of tenants from throughout the airport property, and that they would meet at least monthly with airport management to share ideas and concerns. I also noted that we wanted to see a strategic plan in place for the airport. Airport issues, we need to focus on solid long-term financial plan for the airport. Future of the sewer plant, highest and best use. The MedEd First Energy hopefully would begin construction of the 69 kV line, and then growth of overall aviation business at the airport. Many of you are aware that the Reading Regional Airport, we came to the conclusion that dissolving the authority was not the best way to handle this. Instead, we fundamentally amended the bylaws so that the bylaws now name the 3 sitting county commissioners, the sitting chief operations officer or his or her equivalent, and the sitting director of community and economic development or his or her equivalent. That went into place in November. We are already seeing very positive results. I'll allude to that in a moment. So the airport was reformulated. We moved from 1 regular meeting a month to 2 regular meetings a month. We're now meeting the first Tuesday of the month and the third Tuesday of the month. We did form an airport advisory committee that has a formal spot on the agenda the third Tuesday of the month. We also plan to finalize and implement the BBP strategic plan. We had a workshop presentation yesterday with BBP and reviewed key components of the strategic plan. Focus on the long-term financial health of the airport. Former Commissioner Barnhart, as commissioner, was treasurer of the airport authority. He was elected to that position in November. And now he is seated as the COO, remaining as the treasurer and looking very, very closely at the finances of the airport. Determine the future of the sewer plant, highest and best use. Support the completion of the MedEd First Energy 69 kV line. That construction has not started. It is critical to the entire area around there. The area is virtually out of any available power capacity. And then see growth of overall aviation business continue at the airport in 2023. We are working very closely with Quest. I'm cautiously optimistic that Quest not only will remain, but potentially bring their entire operation to the Reading Regional Airport. Their entire operation is 24 planes flying to approximately 65 cities every day. And this is, for those that may not know, this is not commercial air service. This is emergency medical test results, et cetera, that Quest does here on the entire East Coast. I have a meeting tomorrow, virtual meeting with potential commercial service. We've had multiple entities reach out to reestablish a flight school at the airport. I have had discussions with an entity that's interested in establishing what's called an MRO, a maintenance repair operation. We do not have an MRO at the airport right now. And we're working to develop non-aviation property. Met probably 2 months ago with a local developer that already has a developer's agreement on some non-aviation property bordering 183, and they are actively looking for some development opportunities there. The next area, the areas that are left are, in addition to anything I had in 2022, facilities. Continue to maintain existing facilities in a cost-effective manner and determine the most efficient and cost-effective use of the core county facilities. 3 areas. The space allocation study that was alluded to, it should be completed sometime May or June of this year, and I'd like to see implementation of core recommendations from that study begin shortly after that. Secondly, the Ag Center renovations. I'd like to see completion of phase 1 this year of the Ag Center. There's 2 phases. The Ag Center has not been renovated since it was built in the mid-70s. These are critical renovations. And thirdly, repurposing of the Berks County Residential Center 2 points. One, provide fair transition for the BCRC staff. The end of this month, the ICE facility will close, and approximately 60 employees will be effectively losing their jobs. We are working with them. There are job openings in the county. Our HR, we met with them actually while our COO, Kevin Barnhart, was a commissioner, and we delivered the news to them. We didn't want them to read it in the paper. We didn't want them to hear it from somebody else. We wanted them to hear it from us, and a commitment that we were going to do what needed to be done to take care of them. If there's no other job for them, they will be eligible for severance. Many of them are seeking other jobs with the county. The next area and the last area is economic development. Strengthen our engagement in core economic development efforts throughout the county. Number one, continue our strong partnership with the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance. They are focused on business retention and attraction, and they have special focus on key sector areas. And I wondered if Emily was going to sit through all of this presentation. She was here for an item on the agenda, but Emily Wangolo is here today. She is our brand new director of the Berks County Department of Agriculture. Tammy Hildebrand retired in early December of last year. Emily is now on board. We're very glad to have her, but her department has already been working very closely for the last several years with the GRCA on focusing on agriculture, efforts to encourage people to buy local. I personally believe buying local is more important than the organic debate that goes back and forth, because it's much more important to know where your food comes from and support the many food processors and growers here in Berks County. Secondly, they're focused on the manufacturing area, and thirdly, on healthcare. The second main area is American Rescue Plan. I've alluded to this before, but I see it under economic development. 2 bullets: continue to track and audit dollars already approved and or expended. It's not enough to say we supported this project. If we're not watching to see what happens in the contracts, we have the ability to claw back money that's not expended, or to claw back money if we see that a project's going a direction that it wasn't intended. I can tell you that we already have a handful, and when I say a handful, I'm looking at Derek, maybe 2 or 3 projects that the entities come back to us and said, well, we're not doing quite what we said we were doing. And in most of those cases where I've been asked to weigh in, I've said, okay, no, we'll take the money back. That's not what was intended, and that's not what was presented in the process. And then hold the remaining balance for critical project needs, no additional funding rounds. Next, Imagine Berks. Continue the implementation of the strategy and monitor the results across the key areas. I list those key areas: business and industry growth, small business and entrepreneurship, infrastructure and land use, talent and economic mobility, housing and placemaking. And then finally, and that's what everybody, the favorite words that a politician gives in a speech is finally, unless they say it 10 times. I won't do that. Key authorities that we need to work with: the Reading Regional Airport Authority, the Berks County Redevelopment Authority, the Berks County Industrial Development Authority, the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority, and BARDA and South Central Transportation Authority. 3 bullets. 1, continued partnership with these authorities with a focus on being accountable for the use of taxpayer dollars. A lot of times authorities kind of get a pass because people think they're independent, and they are to a degree, but most authorities are the fiduciary responsibility of another government body. Municipality has a sewer and water authority. Ultimately, that municipality is responsible. These authorities, Berks County is fiduciarily responsible. If they go belly up, The taxpayers have to foot the bill, so we have an obligation to make sure we know what's going on. 2, determine that these authorities continue to meet or exceed their mission parameters. And thirdly, when possible, have these authorities support the needs or mission within county government departments. That concludes my comments. My 2022 goals are already up on my website. I put them up last year. My plan is to leave those up through the balance of this year so people can compare what I'm looking at this year to last year. And either later today or tomorrow, all of these objectives will be listed up on my website as well. I know that was long, but we do that once a year, and I think it's important. The last thing that I do want to say, apart from the goals and objectives, is also congratulate Ken LeBron and the VA team. George Bolton is the newest member, but they were the #1 Veterans Affairs Department in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for processing claims for veterans. Now we have one of the larger veteran populations. I actually think it's 21 to 22,000. It was larger when we took office, but because of not aging out, older veterans die, in spite of what Douglas MacArthur said. Old soldiers never die, they just fade away. But they do. And Ken and his team do a great job serving our veterans, and I want to thank him for that. With that, are there any comments from row officers? Hearing none, we will move to public comment. We have one person in person here, Mary, and Bogdanova, and she is from Ole and wants to discuss
Maria
elections.
Bogdanova Pfeiffer, Ole Township.
Okay, I didn't see Pfeiffer here. Sorry about that. Three minutes.
There's a lot of items I could comment on. One I would like to address. Recently, I started to look at the recycling program. Unfortunately, I've learned that most of the bottles that you use for Coke and this getting on a landfill. They're no longer getting recycled. Second, Emily, thank you for stepping up to agriculture. Congratulations to Tammy. I'm also aware that there are several applicants from farmers who's been sitting on a desk for the last 3 years. They have not been addressed. Item E on the agenda, $6.3 million for the County General Fund, broadband feasibility study, and pilot digital literacy programs. Could you tell me what age group it starts with, the digital program? Okay. I would like to see the health effects of those electromagnetic waves and also the blue screens in children's, because I have kids in the districts that already in 1 year lost their vision. In 1 year, because of the COVID, being introduced on all the cyber learning and absolutely heavy push on the computer screen in school districts, they're losing this. Next instance, I'm saying on the school districts, the issue with vaping, drugs on school properties, and you said you want to decrease the population in jails. They're parents that distribute alcohol and substances to their children. Next agenda, obviously, they should be probably at the top of the list, is election integrity. I became as a U.S. citizen, and one thing that separates U.S. citizen from a legal resident is the right to vote, the right to have the future for this country. As far as I know, Act 77 should have been on the ballot for people to vote. If that's not unconstitutional, those who make those decisions that contradict the Constitution should not be making them. I was a poll watcher, and I met with you, Mr. Linebacker Mike, at Kutztown Library. I witnessed my own eyes the signature confirmation process and how far from what the signature looked like to what actually it's supposed to look like. They were worlds apart. And I remember your comments to me, well, I couldn't, like, I had a problem with my hand, so I couldn't sign it. If you have the tablets that you cannot verify the signature, then they probably should not be used. This is one privilege and the right of every citizen that when they go to the polls and they cast their vote, that vote has to be counted and has to be counted correctly. You had 2 years that been, obviously, a lot of things been brought to your attention. And now you're telling me that it's going to be 8 years clearing out the voter rolls. Not good enough.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Any comments online? Nothing online.
Nothing online.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Motion to adjourn?
The meeting stands adjourned.
Barbara, need the agenda for elections.